Hi Krista, the other day I tried to make a video, but my computer attacked me viciously about halfway through, and I failed. So I dug through the footage that survived, and I put on a similar t-shirt, and I created some new stuff, then I edited everything really heavily, and here is the result. 4 awesome ancient women. Here we go!
Number 1. Hypatia of Alexandria was born in the mid-4th century in Athens, Greece. We know she was educated in the Athenian school, and she followed in her father's footsteps, both in a careful study of Plato and as a philosopher, educator, and mathematician. While we do not know the specifics of her mathematical contributions, we do know they were considered significant at her time, and she was so famous that Socrates of Constantinople said, "She made such attainments in literature and science as to far surpass all the philosophers of her own time. On account of the self-possession and ease of manner which she had acquired in consequence of the cultivation of her mind, she not infrequently appeared in public in the presence of the magistrates. Neither did she feel abashed in going to an assembly of men, for all men, on account of her extraordinary dignity and virtue, admired her the more." Hypatia eventually became the leader of the Neoplatonist school in Alexandria, but in 415 she was murdered by a Christian mob.
One contemporary source suggested that the Bishop of Alexandria might be in some way implicated in her murder, but we don't know for certain.
We do know, however, that at the time, the Bishop of Alexandria was in conflict with a leader of the civil authority, with whom Hypatia was known to associate. Shortly after her death, an anti-Christian letter was associated with her name. Number 2. St. Hildegard von Bingen was an abbess, a mystic, a musician, a natural philosopher, and all-around badass.
Her scientific contributions include a treatise on natural philosophy, a treatise on medicine, and perhaps the first constructed language in the world.
She also invented the morality play, is the first named composer in the Western musical tradition, and is one of only 35 doctors of the Roman Catholic Church. These include such people as Thomas Aquinas, Augustine of Hippo, and the Venerable Bede. Number 3.
Sappho of Erresos was a lesbian, and also maybe a lesbian. Born in the late 7th century BCE, Sappho is widely considered one of the greatest lyric poets of antiquity. While they didn't take on their current meanings until the 19th century, both lesbian and sapphic derived from her place of birth and her name, respectively.
But why was Sappho associated with homoeroticism?
While sexual behavior was not a matter of identity in the 7th century BCE, Sappho was widely known as a lover of women, and while it's unknown if all of her poetry is autobiographical, some of it does read a little bit like Greek mythology fan fiction. For example, some say horsemen, some say warriors, some say a fleet of ships is the loveliest vision in this dark world. But I say it's what you love. It's easy to make this clear to everyone, since Helen, she who outshone all others in beauty, left a fine husband and headed for Troy, without a thought of her daughter, her dear parents, led astray. And I recall Aminatore, whose sweet step or that flicker of light on her face I'd rather see than Lydian chariots or all the armed ranks of the hoplites. I know those feels.
Number 4.
Aminatore, sometimes called Queen Aminatore, was a Kadake of Nubia, and she co-ruled with Natakamani sometime in the 1st century BCE. A Kadake is like a queen or a queen regent in Kushite culture, but with much more power. In addition to co-ruling with her husband and later her son, she would likely have styled herself Kadake and Kore, or king and queen, in the intervening period. Also throughout, she would have had the power to end the current Kore's rule by ordering him to kill himself. And he had to do it. Aminatore's rule marked a zenith in Nubian culture. She's likely the Candace described as the queen of the Ethiopians in the Bible, and she initiated some of that civilization's greatest building projects. But she's probably most badass in that she was a warrior queen. There are bas-reliefs of her crushing her enemies, including rebuffing the Romans and several rebel groups, with a sword and an axe. At the same time, Aminatore, making Xena look less cool by comparison since the 1st century BC. All that in less than 4 minutes. Krista, I'll see you tomorrow.